This is Damon Fordham, adjunct professor of history at the Citadel here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm here to talk to you about the greatest gift that you can give a child. In reading The Wise Mind of Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, His Imperial Majesty teaches us that in chapter 4, verse 15 of this great book of wisdom, he says that there is nothing better than one can leave behind than a worthy and memorable name. And here's a good example of that. This is my father, Abraham Fordham Jr. Okay, he died in 1984, shortly after I turned 19. And he taught for 25 years at the Lang High School, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And one day, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, one of his Fordham students came up to me and told me a really intriguing story. He said that when he was in my father's class, there was a young man who had graduated a couple of years ahead of him and who had gone to Vietnam. And when he came back from Vietnam, the young man was what they then called shell-shocked. We now refer to that as PTSD. And the young man came back and he put on his uniform and he went to high school as if he never graduated or never went off to Vietnam in the first place. Well, that would have freaked a lot of people out. But according to my dad's former student, he said that Dad welcomed him in the class and said, "Well, how are you doing today? Is it good to see you? Did you bring your homework today?" And Dad acted like nothing happened. Everything was normal with the young man being there. And that was one of the things that helped the young veteran adapt to society once he had gotten back from the trauma of the Vietnam War. And my dad's former student went on to say that, well, you know, your dad served in World War II. He was a man of war, and he understood what war did to people. So therefore, he was much more sympathetic in dealing with this veteran student than a lot of other teachers would even today. Now, as his son, how do you think that made me feel to hear a story like that about my father? Made me feel great. Reminded me of a legacy that I had to live up to. But hold up, wait. There are probably some of you watching this right now that say, well, hold on, see, we weren't that lucky. We did not have a father like that. Many of us didn't have fathers. Many of us didn't even have mothers that we could look up to. A lot of us had parents that were in and out of jail on drugs and involved with other miscreant activity. Well, see, here's the thing about that, folks. All of that may be true, and I can understand that. But here's the thing. Even if you may not have had that type of person that could leave you with a good name that you can be proud of, guess what? You can learn from the mistakes that some of your parents have made and determine to do much better for yourself. And when you do that and do much better for yourself, your children, your nieces, your nephews, the young people who could come up to under you and look up to you, even your younger brothers and sisters, could look up to you and say, you know what? I want to be like this person. And years later, people will come to them and say, you know what? I'll never forget the time that your father or your mother or your aunt or your uncle or your older brother or older sister said and did this that inspired me. So this is what Emperor Haile Selassie means when he says that there is nothing better than one can leave behind but a worthy and memorable name. So do what you can to give your children, your nieces, your nephews, and your younger brothers and sisters, and the children that come up around you, give them that gift. This is Damon Fordham.